Your ambition and the art of becoming. Your ambition, if you have any real sense, is not simply to drift through life. It is not to remain vague, unfocused, or useless. Your ambition, if you want to live a meaningful life, must be to become competent. Competent and dangerous. Because the alternative is weakness, and weakness does not bring you peace, it only brings you suffering. The question you must ask yourself is this: do you want to be competent and dangerous, or do you want to be vague and useless? It is definitely the case that no capacity is more extraordinary, no form of danger more remarkable, than the ability to be articulate. To be articulate is to be powerful. To be articulate is to be someone others listen to. To be articulate is to be someone who can move the world with words. And so, in a very real sense, learning to be articulate is not just a skill, it is a moral endeavor. To become articulate is to become the master of your own tongue. And when you master your words, you master your thoughts. And when you master your thoughts, you master your life. Every advantage has a disadvantage. But remember this: every advantage you develop will carry with it a disadvantage. If you are extroverted, you may be social, lively, and positive. But you may also find yourself impulsive, tempted by hedonism, and unable to tolerate being alone. If you are introverted, you may be reflective, steady, and capable of solitude. But you may also struggle with isolation, self-doubt, and timidity. Wherever you fall in the landscape of temperament, there will be strengths, and there will be temptations and weaknesses. That is why your goal is not to avoid difficulty, but to recognize it and then order your life accordingly. Order your room. This is why the seemingly simple act of ordering your room is so often emphasized. A chaotic room makes you anxious. Why? Because chaos creates too many pathways. Your mind doesn't know where to focus. A cluttered room mirrors a cluttered soul. People don't truly repress the things they don't want to face. They simply fail to unpack them. They bury them beneath noise, clutter, and distraction. And the result is that the unresolved remains unresolved, and it weighs you down. So, order your room. Start with the small. Then, order your habits. Then, order your days. This creates a foundation upon which higher goals can be pursued. The uphill climb. You want a horizon of ever-expanding possibility. That's the truth of human nature. We are not built to sit still. We are not built to lie in comfort forever. We are built to walk uphill. To take on weight. To move toward challenges. And here is the paradox: when you reach the pinnacle of a hill, the joy you feel is not in the resting. The joy is in seeing that there is yet another, higher hill in the distance. You rest for a moment, yes. You appreciate the vision, yes. But deep down, you know what you want next: a higher challenge, a more noble pursuit, a greater goal. That is how you grow. That is how you stay alive in spirit. Beware of unintended consequences. You must also beware of unintended consequences. We are often naive enough to believe, this thing I want will only do exactly what I want it to do, and nothing else. But life does not work like that. Every decision you make has ripple effects. Every choice carries outcomes you cannot predict. And this is precisely why truth is so important. If you live by falsehood, whether small lies to yourself or great lies to others, the unintended consequences will eventually overwhelm you. Truth and humility. To live truthfully requires humility. Because to start being truthful is to confront your inadequacies. To look at yourself and say, here is where I fall short. Here is where I am wrong. Here is where I am weak. And that is painful. That requires humility. That requires courage. But without that, you don't have your adventure. You only have the dull role you've settled for, the acquiescence to mediocrity. And that takes the meaning right out of your life. Your life becomes an imitation, not a journey. Taking your place in the world. It is good, no, it is essential, for you to take your place in the world. Have some ambition. Have a vision. Have a goal. Develop a strategy. And try, with everything in you, to be a good person, not because it is your duty, in some abstract sense, but because it is the proper way to live. Sit on your bed one night and ask yourself honestly, what is one thing I am doing wrong, that I know I am doing wrong, that I could fix? Meditate on that. And if you are truly honest, you will get an answer. And if you act on that answer, you will grow. Growth through voluntary burden. You grow in proportion to the weight you voluntarily take on. And here is the mysterious thing. We don't know the upper limit of how much a human being can grow when they take on responsibility voluntarily. All we know is this: value is derived from the uphill climb. That is not metaphorical, it is technical. Almost all positive emotion, especially enthusiasm and joy, is experienced in relation to a goal. You feel alive when you are pursuing something meaningful. You feel rich when you are moving toward something worthwhile. This is why you want a goal you can never fully attain. Because then, you are always moving closer to it, even though it continually recedes into the distance. Some people think that's frustrating, like Sisyphus endlessly pushing the rock uphill. But it isn't. Because as you pursue the goal, you put yourself together. You improve. Your life becomes richer. That is why the highest goals must be transcendent. They must sit above everything you do, always pulling you higher, always calling you to become more than you currently are. Life is for living, not sleeping. You are not here to be asleep. The fantasy of sitting on a beach with endless cocktails, doing nothing for eternity, that is not living. That is unconsciousness. And it only works for a week. After that, you are restless. After that, you are aimless. After that, you are depressed. To live is to be engaged in an adventure. To live is to pursue an ever-expanding horizon. To live is to climb, sword in hand, like a warrior moving uphill. That is dynamic. That is exciting. That is life. The adventure of truth. People fear truth because truth often causes conflict in the short term. If you tell the truth, someone might dislike it. If you tell the truth, someone might get angry. If you tell the truth, something might break. But truth is also the adventure. Another way to think about it is this: you could spend your life saying only what you think others want to hear, tailoring your words to achieve the outcomes you want. That is one way of living. Or, you could simply say what you genuinely think, and see what happens. That is an adventure. Because you don't know what will come of it. You are trusting that the truth itself produces the best possible outcome, even if it is harsh, even if it is painful. That is why truth requires faith. Faith that being truthful produces a better reality than being deceitful, even when the cost of truth is high. And I believe this deeply: the being you create through truth-telling is good, even if the process is harsh, even if it is uncomfortable. Aspiration and responsibility. Aspiration and responsibility are tightly connected. Do you need to aspire to something? Absolutely. Because you must act. You cannot simply sit still, you will decay and die. So the question is not whether to aspire. The question is what to aspire toward. And the answer is this: aspire toward something worthwhile. Aspire toward something meaningful. At the very least, aspire to take responsibility for yourself. And then, aspire to take responsibility for your family. And perhaps, you can even aspire to take responsibility for your community. That is meaningful. That is noble. That gives your life weight and direction. Without aspiration, your life has no meaning. Without something above you to aim toward, you fall into despair. The burden that makes life worthwhile. People are built for struggle. We are built for burden. The question is not whether you will carry weight, but whether you will choose the weight you carry. Choose it voluntarily. Take on the heaviest burden you can bear. That is what makes life worthwhile. Because life is an all-in game. You don't get to opt out. You don't get to float forever. You are alive, and you will die. And so while you are here, you must make it matter. Belief and emotion. It took me years to understand that belief regulates emotion. Here's why: when you act out your identity, when you live according to what you believe, and what you want doesn't happen, your body goes into emergency mode. It prepares for everything. Because in that moment, you are lost. You've wandered too far from the campfire, and now you are in the forest, exposed, unprepared, vulnerable. And so your body prepares for every possible danger. That is unbelievably draining. Psychologically, physiologically, it hurts. That is why belief matters. That is why clarity matters. Because when you act in alignment with belief, and you see results, you are stable. But when you are too far adrift in uncertainty, you collapse into chaos. And so, you must build a life of aspiration, responsibility, and truth. Because without that, you are left naked in the forest, lost in anxiety, and unable to bear the weight of existence. Conclusion. So, what should your ambition be? To be competent. To be articulate. To be truthful. To be dangerous in the best possible sense. To aspire toward the highest, most transcendent goals you can imagine. To take on responsibility voluntarily. To live uphill, with your sword in hand, as a warrior engaged in the adventure of life. Because the alternative, vagueness, weakness, uselessness, is not peace. It is despair. Choose ambition. Choose truth. Choose responsibility. Choose to live.